Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, the 27th of January, and today we are learning to identify and select appropriate modal verbs to give advice. Your do now today is to edit and correct the sentences below. If my first suggestion didn't work, then you may try my next one. Personally, I think you should grab their attention by doing backflips. Pause the video here whilst you copy up the sentences onto your paper and press play once you're ready to see how we got on. Well done. So let's see how we did. So if I get my pen ready, if my first suggestion didn't work, so I've got here a subordinate conjunction, if, and that means that I need to be looking out for a comma if my first suggestion didn't work, and my comma should go here. However, there was also another mistake if you spotted that suggestion had been misspelt. So if I write here, suggestion needs two G's, so suggestion there. If my first suggestion didn't work, did not work, didn't, we have another contraction. So I need to use an apostrophe here because I dropped the O in did not, didn't. If my first suggestion didn't work, then you may try my next one. You could have kept may, but really I would have changed this. Now, may is a modal verb, and I think that something like should would work quite well here, or must, because I do actually have should just underneath, so maybe must. Then you must try my next one. Personally, comma, capital I think you should grab their attention by doing backflips. So grab was misspelt. It should have only had one B, so that was a spelling mistake here. And the spelling of there. So there is a tricky one to remember which use of there you want to use. The way that I was taught, actually, I think by my year 5 teacher, so I still remember, was talking about how you can see the word here in the word there, this version, and here relates to a place. So if I said put that over there, that would be this use. However, because we're talking about people, we shouldn't be using this version, and instead we want to use the spelling T-H-E-I-R. And the way I remember this one is if you are familiar with the word as in heir to a throne. So Prince William is the heir to the throne. Prince Charles is the heir to the throne, or is the royal heir. That relates to a person. And that version of heir, H-E-I-R, is the one we want to use. So sorry, I spent quite some time on that one, but hopefully that will help one of you remembering which one to use. Attention is fine. Doing is also misspelt. We have an E that we don't need. So doing with just the ing and backflips, and then a full stop was here at the end. Okay, so well done if you got all of those. If you do need to pause the video and make any extra amendments, then please do that now, but I am going to proceed with the rest of the lesson. Okay, so as I've already discussed in the WALT, we're going to be looking at modal verbs today. We have already looked at these much earlier in the year, but you will have seen from looking at the model text that we have quite a lot of modal verbs that we can use. Now, a modal verb is a special type of verb, and it indicates how likely something is, the likelihood of it, the ability, the permission or obligation. But really, to put it simply, it's basically when things are needed, likely or possible. So this relates to the solutions and the suggestions that we're making in our letter. This is when we will be using them, or maybe even in the summary. They include, but they're not exclusive to, must, ought, can, could, may, might, will, would, shall and should. So words that you're all very familiar with. And some examples here. You should drink your tea before it gets cold. Should is the modal verb here. And in these sentences now, can you spot the modal verbs? Good if you spotted shall and may. What do you notice about their position in the sentences? So well done if you notice that a modal verb goes before the verb. Okay, it goes before the verb. And degrees of modality. Hopefully you do remember when we discussed this that we have a range of low to high or high to low modal verbs, and that depends on how likely something is or how possible it is, how convincing or how certain we are if something will happen. So very certain modal verbs with what we call a high modality, must, will, would, ought to. And the further down the list we go, the lower modality they are. So can, could, may, might. And you can think that if I said, you might be able to go outside later, I wouldn't sound very certain. If I said, you will go out later, I would sound very confident that that is very likely to happen. So remember that we want to choose the appropriate level of modality in our advice letters when we give animals solutions, because we will feel differently about different solutions. So I've still got my list of modal verbs here with them ranked for you to help you. For example, you will soon be free of this problem is much more guaranteed and more certain than this may work well. It shows how being really selective and thinking really carefully about your language, even down to a modal verb, can have such a powerful effect on your writing and can really change the meaning and how you come across to the reader. And especially if you are giving your reader lots of suggestions with you must do this, you would sound extremely bossy and your reader would be very confused as to what they should do first and when. So think carefully about how you would sequence your modal verbs as well. So I've got two sentences here. You must try this versus you may want to try this. What differences can you see? Well, I see that they are both using modal verbs. So this one has must and this one has may. Now I know that must is a higher modal verb, a higher modality. So you must try this is definitely much bossier, and it's more commanding and it's more forceful than the second one. You may want to try this. If I said, you must try this, you would think I would sound very confident about it, that you would like it, or I'm telling you what to do. You may want to try this. You might think, maybe not as certain, more hesitant, maybe less likely to work because it's lower modality. So let's take a look at these sentences here. I would initially try and solve this problem by making weird noises versus you must play dead in order to solve this conundrum. Pause the video here and have a think to yourself. What differences do you see? Okay, so if we look at our modal verbs, I would definitely try and solve this problem by making weird noises versus you must play dead. Must is far more, it's a higher modality verb, it's far more forceful and far more confident than I would initially try. I would is more of a suggestion. Even the word initially in that sentence suggests that it might not work. Initially try, you have other suggestions to follow. Saying you must play dead is far more certain, and you believe that it would work effectively. So in our advice letters, we will be giving our animals different solutions for their problems, and we're going to be very confident about some of our solutions, while maybe more unsure or hopeful, even hesitant about some of our other solutions. They might be quite extreme or not have a very high success rate, might be a bit experimental. So just to recap, if we were very confident about a solution, what type of modal verb would we use? What modal verbs would be appropriate? Have a little think now. You don't have to write anything down, but just have a think. Well, I think that must would be a great modal verb to use. It's the highest modality. It's very confident. It's almost a command-like, isn't it? I also think that will is an excellent one to use. Just be careful of the tense and the sentence type you are using that one in. Would, and then ought to. And then conversely, what if we were just more hopeful of a solution working? What modal verbs would be appropriate then? Have a think to yourself. What would you choose? Well, might would be a great one. Might is very hesitant, followed closely by may. Can, depending again, can is a bit of a funny one, like with will, where it fits certain sentences and not others. And I think firmly in the middle is should. I think if you were looking for a medium modality, I think should would go in the middle. Okay, so let's look at our first example of your independent work today. This one is just for me, so please continue watching carefully and then you'll get your opportunity to complete your work soon. So I've got two sentences here. My first suggestion may solve your problem. My first suggestion should solve your problem. So in my margin, imagine I've got a margin here. I want to say what the modal verbs are in the sentences. Question A. I can see that may is the modal verb here, and that should is the modal verb here. Great job. B. Explain how the meaning of the sentence changes in the second example. Well, I know that should is more of a medium modality verb than may. May is lower. So it sounds as though in the second example that it is more guaranteed, slightly more certain that the suggestion will work. So explain how the meaning changes to it is more certain that the solution will work. Please bear with me with my handwriting. As I said, I'm still using that new tablet. I think it is clear enough. Hopefully you can see it. It's more certain that the solution will work. So for your first independent question, you've got two sentences. I'll read them out on each slide. You're going to write in your margin on your page, if you've got a margin, or just on the far left if you've not got one, A, what the modal verbs are. So you write two modal verbs, and then B, how the meaning of the sentence changes in the second example. Okay. So question 1, have you ever tried running at top speed around your cage? That might renew the children's interest. Sentence 2, have you ever tried running at top speed around your cage? That will renew the children's interest. Pause the video here whilst you answer your questions and press play once you're ready for question 2. Question 2. Finally, you must try this idea as a last resort. Pretend to be dead. Finally, you absolutely could try this idea as a last resort. Pretend to be dead. Pause the video here whilst you answer the questions and press play once you're ready. Question 3. The problem will persist if you do not take heed of one of these solutions. Sentence 2. The problem might persist if you do not take heed of one of these solutions. Pause the video here whilst you answer the questions and press play to see how you got on. So you might have phrased your answers to part B slightly differently, but if you got the general meaning matching, then I'm happy for you to tick your answer. If you're not sure, then please upload onto Seesaw and someone will be able to feed back to you. So the modal verbs in sentences 1 and 2 on question 1 were might and will. So well done if you got those. And B, explain how the meaning of a sentence changes. So it sounds like the solution is guaranteed to work in the second sentence. Will is high modality compared to might. Question 2, must and could are the modal verbs. And in B, it's less urgent and more of a suggestion. And in question 3, will and might. And for part B, it suggests that the problem may not be fixed, but it isn't guaranteed to remain. So it's not too certain. Okay, so part 2 of our lesson now. Here we have a fish with a problem, so hopefully we can help fix this and find a solution. So they say, I'm being ignored by the other fish in the tank. Help! So we're going to think of a couple of solutions for our fishy friend and modal verbs to match the solution appropriately. So I wonder if you can think of any really good suggestions that we could give for this poor fish. Well, I think a really important thing to try is if the fish has actually tried speaking to the other fish yet to make friends with them. So I want to, this is my first suggestion, so I might use the friend's adverbial firstly, remembering my comma. Firstly, because this I think is quite important, You must maybe strike up. Oh dear, sorry, let me get rid of that. I missed out my eye. Firstly, you must strike up a conversation. Will that fit? Oh, just about. With the friendliest fish. Okay, and I think that's quite an important one because we need to make sure that our fish has actually tried and taken things on board already. And there might be a fish that's feeling a little bit shy that just maybe hasn't had a chance to speak to them yet. So my second suggestion then, I think this one's quite an important one with must. So thinking about one that maybe is a little bit more experimental, maybe not guaranteed to work. So thinking about a different fronted adverbial, I might want secondly, or if my first suggestion doesn't work, so I think I might go with that one. If that, sorry, doesn't work, comma, then you could, so sounding much more hesitant now, and then think it was lots of different things they could do. They could do tricks, they could jump out of the tank, they could hide. I'm going to have, then you could blow bubbles in the faces of the, sorry, other fish. If you really wanted to, you could put some parenthesis on the end of a sentence like that, because even though we are practicing our modal verbs, we can still practice different sentence structures. I wonder if you could think of a third solution using a different modal verb. Just have a think to yourself. You can write it down if you want to, but you don't have to. But have a think now. Is there another solution you can think of with a different modal verb? So this is the next part of your independent. So you've got a poor pug here, and the pug is saying, I really don't like it when my owner dresses me up. Please give me some advice. So on the same piece of paper as before, you're going to pause the video here and give 2 suggestions of advice for the dog using 2 different modal verbs. Press play on the video once you're ready to continue. Well done. Question 2. My owner insists on bathing me every day and I hate it. How can you help me? Pause the video here and write 2 suggestions for the cat who hates taking a bath using 2 different modal verbs. Try and make them 2 different ones from the previous question as well. And press play once you are ready. Well done. So that is your independent work for today done. Please make sure that you do upload it onto Seesaw. With the second 2 questions, it's quite difficult to give you full answers because you'll have lots of different suggestions and sentence structures. So that one will have to be looked at by an adult on Seesaw. So please make sure you do upload that one. And please make sure that you do self-assess on the first set of questions as well. Now, you don't have to write the answers to these down, although you may if you want to, but have a think to yourself. What is a modal verb? What does it do? What is its purpose in a sentence? Number 2, give an example of a high modal verb with high modality. It's very persuasive. And number 3, what is the modal verb in the sentence below? You must not leave without trying the sushi. All right then, take care everybody, and I'll be with you all in the morning for another lesson, continuing on with our study of advice letters. Take care and have a great day. Bye.